Hello, and welcome to today's Criterion Learning Series. My name is Steve Tompkins. I'm the Principal Solutions Architect with Criterion, and today I'm going to show you data grids in Criterion. As a reminder, we of course are recording this, so you'll be able to revisit this and watch the video again if you like, or share it with colleagues. We do have a chat and a Q&A feature that is available through the Zoom meeting. So if you do have questions, we have people monitoring those questions, and we'll answer them as we can. And if I have a chance at the end, I'll also bring up any questions that maybe are not answered or maybe relevant to everybody, so you can get an idea of what's out there. So let's go ahead and switch over to self-service, and you'll be able to see what data grids are like. Now, you may have used data grids in the past, and make sure I'm showing my self-service. So you may have used data grids in the past, and maybe you created them, maybe they were created for you, maybe you have a colleague who's created them. So we're going to talk about creating them and running them, and also scheduling them. So data grids are 100% something that happens in the admin. There is no self-service component to this. So I'm going to go over to the admin, and we'll go to data grids. So data grids are going to be located under reports here. And this doesn't matter if I'm under payroll, recruiting, HR. I've got reports right here. And then you'll see data grid down here. Now, I do want to point out that it's possible that somebody has used a custom localization to change the name of data grids to something else. Maybe you've called it custom reports or ad hoc reporting or something along those lines. So it might not say data grid when you go there, but it is going to be, today is the third one from the bottom is data grid, and it'll look like this when you click on it. So you can see I have some already created, and if you go into your system, you might see something like this, probably not these same reports here, but you might have some that are already created. Perhaps another administrator has created some for you or that they use, and so you would be able to see those there. And to run an existing one, super easy to do. I'll just click on one, and it'll just run the report as it currently stands, and you can, of course, look at it on the screen and scroll down and go to different pages and so forth, exporting it out to Excel and doing what you might need to do with the existing report. That's pretty straightforward. That'll work for any report you see out here that's been created. But let's go over actually creating one so you get an idea how that works. So I'll go ahead and click on New in the top corner here. And of course, it's going to be a blank slate that doesn't have any data yet because I haven't selected it. Now, you do have some options over here on this first dropdown. So the first one here is module. And what this is we've gone ahead and kind of pre-built some lists of fields that you could use for various reports. So when you click on this drop-down menu, you're going to see several that are already listed here that are going to be pre-built. So you might be looking for something that has a list of your employees or their jobs or their benefits or something like that. You can look through this list and see if you can find something that matches, or maybe you want to type in benefit as an example, and you'll see the various ones here that have benefits in the description here. I'm just going to pick one. I'll choose deduction and benefits. And you can certainly explore around. As you saw, there were many of them, so I can't explore them all today, but you're certainly welcome to explore around here. Now, one key thing about creating these things is when you create them and you pull data and you put them on here, none of this is going to write back to your data. So if you create something and it's got a bunch of nonsense, you don't understand what it's doing, you could easily delete it and start over, and you're not going to impact anything else in the system except for that one data grid that you deleted. All right, so once I select the module, you'll see I have a whole bunch of fields that I can now choose from, also known as columns, because they're going to end up being columns when I look at it. And so you can see these, and again, I can search. So if I'm looking for, let's say, the employee's name, I might type in name as the field here, and then it's going to highlight the various fields that have the word name in them. Now, some of them are obviously not the employee's name, but I can go down and eventually I'll get to some that actually do contain the person's name in there if I want to do that. And you'll see I can do other things in here as well. Actually, this is not a great example because this is actually the setup of this, but I'll go forward anyways. This is the different benefits. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose a benefit out here. Let me choose benefit plan, code, and description. And then I'll choose the deduction code and description. And you'll see here, as I'm checking these, it's just adding them in the order that I check them. It doesn't matter if I went back up and I clicked on carrier name, it's going to now be the fifth one because that's the fifth one I selected, even though it happens to be third in the list. It's the order that I added them in. If I need to reorder them, I can click on this little menu here, the little hamburger icon or lines to reorder them if I like to. You'll see here as I do that, I can now drag carrier name up as an example. And let me just go down here, maybe add deduction limits. I don't know. I'm just going to pick some fields here. All right, if I need to remove a field, there's a couple of ways. First off, I could uncheck the box and that removes it. Or I could hit the little trash can icon over here to delete it. Now, the difference is when I hit the trash can, it asks me, do I want to delete it? When I uncheck the box, it doesn't. That's really the only difference between the two options. Okay, here you'll notice I have options for sorting and setting criteria. So perhaps I want this sorted by the benefit plan description. Now, what happens if I don't choose a sort? It's just going to pull them from whatever order they are in the database, which might be alphabetical if you happen to put everything in alphabetically. But, you know, a lot of times you add in Aetna and then you add in your vision plan and you go back and you do your dental plan or something. So they're not in any logical alphabetical order or anything like that. So they could just be anything. So if you do want it to be, let's say, by the description, you can come in here and say you want to just sort this is ascending or descending, so A to Z or Z to A. Of course, if it was like a date field or numeric field, it'll do the same type of thing, ascending or descending. All right, so I could do that there. Of course, I could add other ones. So if I wanted to be the description and then the carrier name, I could do that. Maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense in this situation because you probably have different benefit plans. They're not going to all have the same description. But maybe if you're doing like employee last name and you did first name or something, that would make sense. All right, and then you'll notice here I have different criteria that maybe I want to set as well. So you could go in here and you could use this to set criteria. You'll see here you could do and you could do or. So this will allow you to say the benefit plan code name, so it's going to match up this field, equals a certain value, or does not equal. That's what the exclamation point means. Is null means it's blank. Is not null means there's a value in there. And then, of course, contains, I would type in some of it. So if I was looking for medical, maybe I type in MED as an example. Okay, so that would work. Now, I don't know if I have any codes with MED, but we'll find out. And then you'll see here, I can do and or. Now, the very first line is going to go up here when I do and. I could do or if I needed to. So I could say it contains med and it contains Blue Shield or something like that. Or I might say it contains med or it contains dental. So I might want to do that. So I could do dental and do an or. All right, now you'll see here I can trash can this if these don't work. Maybe I put in too many criteria here and I'm not getting any results. I might want to come in and trash can or delete these as necessary. Now, the key thing is making sure that you click the add button, because I've seen many times where people will type in med and then they'll just click on change and it doesn't add it down here because they didn't click the add button. So make sure you click the add button to add that criteria. All right, now I hit cancel. So when I come back in, it's not going to be there. So just to show you what can happen there, we don't pop up with something in there, but I wanted to show you what happens if I hit cancel. So now you'll see it actually shows me my criteria here. Now, of course, I might have a lot of criteria, in which case it might not be able to show it all. And you could always click in here and go in there. All right, and now I'll go ahead and hit next to run this. So I happen to have 4 plans that meet that criteria of containing MED in the code. And so you can see how that works. I get these 4 results here and it has those columns that I selected. All right, so pretty straightforward on how that works there. If I would like to save this, because maybe I want to see a list of my medical plans, I could save this and call this a list of medical plans. And now that's the name of this data grid that I've created. I could go back and edit and change some things in here. And then when I come into this screen, if I do make some changes, I want to make sure I hit save to save whatever changes I might have made. Otherwise, if I don't, maybe I just go to another screen, it will revert back to the last save. Now, this data will be real time. So in other words, if I go in and I add another medical plan or something, next time I come in here, I'll see that plan. So there's always real time data. Every time you go and run it, it's going to pull the latest data that matches that criteria out there. All right, now you'll see here this cancel button. That would just close this. So if you need to go somewhere else, you can, of course, click on another screen and go to that screen. But if I'm done with this, I might want to hit cancel to close it, delete it. If I want to remove this report, again, it's not going to delete these 4 plans or something. It's just going to delete this particular report that I created. And now that I have it, here is my list of medical plans. So you get an idea of how easy it is to create a module 1 if you like to do that right there. All right, just real quick, can you create reports in the sandbox? You can. The only thing is you cannot copy them from the sandbox to the live. So if you create one over there, you'd have to create it again in live. All right, let me do the next type down, which is a table. Now, the modules, like I said, these are kind of pre-built. So they already have fields in there that are already defined. Table allows you to go to any table in the system and pull data from any field in that table. You can also add in multiple tables if you need to. So let's say you're looking for some employee information. You might type employee and pull this table. And then when I do that, these tables are all related to the employee table. So they're ones you may want to add in that pull data from the employee table. So I might want the person information that's going to have like their name and stuff like that. So I might want that in there. And when I add in person, you'll notice here, it already creates a link between the table called employee and the table called person. So you're building this out yourself. We did this in those modules for you. You don't have to worry about the kind of behind the scenes. But here, you're building this out. The advantage of this is that every field in employee and every field in person is now accessible. The modules, they may not all be in there because they just, they're maybe not very popular fields as you might say. So we don't include every field in every module. All right, but if I would like to add a field, I simply click this little icon right here next to where it says table. And now I see all the different fields. Now, this is where it could get a little tricky because you may not understand what these different fields are. What is status code? What is TC card? What are these different fields? So we do have a data dictionary available. You can reach out to us. We can send it to you. That'll define what these are. We try to make this in pretty plain English as far as this is concerned, but sometimes it just is confusing. You may not understand what termination CD is. So that's, right there. But let me show you adding fields very similar to the other one. The only difference is I check them off, and then when I hit done, it'll add them into the grid there. So is hired, let's do hire date and employee number. So I've got a few different fields here, and I'll click done. And now there they are. All right, let me do the same type of thing in person. I'll select some fields out of here. Let's do the first name and the last name. I'll add those two. All right, so I'm adding them from the different tables. Now I could still add other tables in here if I needed to. Now what this would do is it would find the related field in here that might be in here. Now this one is a little tricky because if you add code table detail, any field here that says CD as the type, that's a code. So you'll look here, this is status code. When you look in the data itself, this might be just a number, and you have no idea what that number actually means. Adding code table detail will allow you to get the description, but it's going to do it for every CD. So it'll add it for status code and termination code. It would also go in and add it anywhere in the person. So country, disability, citizenship, ethnicity, gender, you can see there's quite a few fields in here. So just be careful if you add this, it's going to add it all over the place. And you're going to see a lot of data perhaps in your report. So be aware of that. When you do that, you may want to add it in a particular order so it doesn't add it too much. You can always delete it, but just be aware that if I do add it, it's going to be all over the place. All right, you'll see we do establish what we call the link or the join between the tables. That's what this little chain icon is. If anybody is familiar with databases, you'll understand what this means. I'm not going to go into the detail here. but this is joining the two tables together. All right, we'll be happy to answer questions on that. If there's anything, maybe best to reach out to support to really explain that. Of course, I'm not going to say it, but the information is online as well. All right, so here you can see I still have the same options for sorting and criteria. So perhaps I want to say is hired is true as an example. All right, I'll add that in there. All right, so just give you an idea there. Now, one thing I can do is if I choose, I have this little option over here to not show the value in this column. Let me show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to uncheck it to show you the difference. So when I hit next here, here's the person ID. That might be meaningless because that's not really anything you see anywhere in the system or reference. Nobody's going to know that their person ID is number 11. It's not like the employee number. So that might be useless information as far as like a report to a manager is concerned. So you may want to just choose to hide that by just checking that, little red X. You're not removing it. You're just hiding it. All right. So now that column isn't there. Okay. And now I might want to rearrange. I can also rearrange the columns right here if I need to do that. All right. So you can see how that works right there. All right. Again, I might not want this column called is hired because I just care about the people who are hired. They've gone through the approval process and they're active. So I choose to hide that one. All right. And then I might want to save this and say this is my union employee list or something like that. And, maybe I do a criteria on this column. So pretty good idea of what this looks like, I think. And you can see how this works here. I'll go ahead and save this, and I'll just call this a union employee number list or something like that. All right, so now I have that one saved as well. Here you'll see I have the option to export this out to Excel or to CSV. If I don't want to just view it here in the system, perhaps I want to drop it out. I can click this button, and I don't know if it showed on the screen there, but it downloaded it to a file called datagrid.xls or XLSX. So it downloaded that file. Of course, I could do a CSV there. All right, let me talk about the next type here, which is a form. So this requires there to be a form set up in your system. If you don't have any forms set up, you can't run this one because it's pulling data from forms you have created. As a reminder, we've done training on forms before, but they're here under general. And so you can see I have various forms in the system that I might want to pull data off of. So that's what this allows me to do, is to pull data off of that form. This is kind of like the modules in that it's going to list the form here. And then I can pull the data off of that form. So let's just choose this one called example. Here are the columns that are on that form. If I were to bring up this form, these 3 data fields are on there. There's also going to be some other data that's automatically going to be on here. You'll see that in a second. But I'll just select all 3, same options here for sorting and criteria. And you'll notice it's already going to add in. Let's see if I can find one that I've got some data here. Let me choose form I-9. Maybe I've got some data in there. Okay, first 11. I don't really care about the actual data. Here you'll see it already puts the employee's name and number and work location. This is their default work location. So these 3 columns are already going to be there. You don't need to worry about finding a field called employee name. Now, maybe there's a field on your form called employee name, in which case you could certainly add that. But these 3 columns are here every time you create a form data grid. And then, of course, it's the data from that form. You do see that it is limited to the number of columns that we can put out there. So you can't just put every single column on a form. If you do need to grab, let's say, all of the data off the I-9 form, then you're going to have to maybe create multiple data grids. Or I believe it'll work if I do it as a SQL. I think I can have any number of columns I want a SQL, but that's way more advanced than probably most people want to deal with. All right, so that is a form. You can get an idea of how that would work. You just choose the form, and then the fields on that form are here. All right, similar, I'm going to skip this for right now, to custom screen. So if you have any custom screens created, and as a reminder, we've done a training on here as well, they're going to be right here under custom screens. As you can see, I have 3 of them. So I'll be able to go out here and see those 3. And then the fields from that custom screen are going to be available just like the other one. The employee name, their number, and the work location are going to be here automatically. Okay, and then there's the other things from this. Now you might say, well, why do I only see 3 records? I know I've got 150 employees or something. These are the 3 records where there actually is data in a custom screen. All my other employees, I don't have any data in the custom screen. Same thing with a form. Maybe everybody hasn't filled out that form, so I wouldn't see it to them. It has to be assigned to them to actually see the record from there. So if I don't have a custom screen record for any other employees, I'm only going to see the ones where there's actually values. All right, so employee equipment as an example there. All right, now the last one, and this one is going to be very technical because it's very helpful if you understand SQL or SQL. So we're not going to cover SQL language here in this training. We don't have enough time. It would take way more than 10 minutes to cover SQL, but this is pulling data. It's like a table in that I can select the tables that I want, the different columns like first name, last name, etc. And I can build out a statement that will only select this, could not update data or delete or anything, but select data from various fields within the system. Now, sometimes we create these for you, or they were created during implementation, or maybe you are somebody who understands SQL, or you have a business partner you worked with, and they've written something like this for you. Great, that's going to be awesome. You can work here. Of course, if you want to, Google it and learn SQL and try things out, certainly more than welcome to try it out. The system will tell you if there's errors and stuff. It's not 100% going to tell you what the problem is, but it will show errors if there's a problem. But just be aware, this can obviously be very complicated, and we don't expect, probably 99% of people to understand what this is, but it's there if you ever need it. So that's SQL or SQL. So those are the different options there for creating various data grids. Now, one other thing I'll point out here is maybe you've got a colleague who created a report for you. You like it, but you want to edit it a little bit. And they say, hey, don't touch my report. Can you just make your own? You can clone it. So this will take that report that they made, and now you can say, oh, okay, I'm going to create a clone of it. And now I want to add or remove some other columns from that report. This isn't touching the original one. Maybe you don't care about the number, the average days, hours, and weeks. So you just remove those, from here. And now you've got your own version of this. You probably want to rename it because it says clone. But, now you come out here and maybe you put your initials up here or something like that. All right, so it does allow you to kind of, cheat off of somebody else's work, I guess you could say. You can clone somebody else's work. That would work in SQL too. If you wanted to, clone this SQL one and then go in there and mess around with the SQL, you can clone it and then do your own thing in it. That way you can be sure you're not going to mess up the original. And if you do copy to the sandbox, these get copied as well. So you'll be able to try them out over there if you want to mess around with SQL, or just any of them. It'll copy them over there, and then you can play around with them if you need to. All right, let me talk real quick about scheduling these. This works for other reports too, but let's talk about it in a data grid context. So under system configuration, if you go down to near the bottom is task scheduler. And in here, you can schedule reports, including data grids, to run and be delivered to whoever you like, whenever you like. So I'll show you how that works here. I'll go ahead and click on add. And you'll see here the settings up here at the top, and then down here at the bottom is the task. So I'm going to call this, let's see, what was that? The employee union report, right? So that's the employee union report. I'm going to use that one I created. How often do I want this to run? So maybe I just want it to run one time today at noon. I could do something like that. Maybe I need it every week or every month or some other interval out here. Now, interval allows you to say X number of hours or minutes. So maybe I need this every 20 minutes. Probably not this report, but perhaps there's one you want to run daily or something, or twice a day or something. You might want to say, every 720 minutes to get every 6 hours. Maybe not with a report, but that's what that does there. So let's just say weekly. I want to run this one. I do want to make sure it's active, so it'll run. And then when do I want it to run? Now, this is based off of the primary work location for the employer that's right here. So this is a employer specific setting, and it's going to look at the primary work location. The reason we say that is because if you have East Coast and West Coast and stuff like that, if I choose, let's say 9 a.m. and my headquarters or my primary work location is in New York City, that's going to be 6 a.m. for somebody who's in the Los Angeles office. So this is not, this is based off the employer's primary work location time zone. Right. And how often do I want this to run? So weekly on Mondays, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or whatever I want to do here. I can do that. All right. But I'm going to do weekly on Mondays at 9 a.m. And I'm going to go ahead and add a task. So the task in this situation is going to be data grid. Now you'll see here report. It's going to be the same if I want to run one of the standard reports, but I'm going to do data grid. And then I just select the data grid that I would like to run. So let me go down and choose that union report. How do I want it to be delivered? Excel or CSV? Okay, I'll choose Excel. And then who is actually going to receive this? So this would allow me to choose one of my employee groups, and everybody who's a member of that group, it would be delivered to them. Here I can put in one or more employees. So maybe I wanted to go to Chris and Colin. Right, so those two people would receive it. Here's an employee list. So this would be just a list of email addresses. We are not validating that these are valid email addresses or that they are within your company. So just be aware of this. It's possible somebody could send it outside of your organization by using email list. And then SFTP, this would allow you to save it to an external server somewhere. We use these usually for things like carrier feeds. We send them over to a secure server. That's what SFTP is, Secure File Transfer Protocol. So probably not for a report, but perhaps maybe you're sending this over to the union itself, and they have a server to go to. So you might have that information over there. This will require some setup elsewhere to be able to do that. But let's just do an employee list, and I'll select Chris and Colin, and I'll hit update. Now I could run this report and have it delivered to somebody else as well, or a different report using the same schedule. So maybe I have multiple reports I all want to be run at Monday at 9 a.m. and delivered to various people. I could do that as well. So I can create multiple, things in here by just adding another one. Let's say there was a report I want to run, and it's the address list. Now this is a little different because the address list, whenever I do a report, it asks me for the options of the report. So just be aware of that. And then this address list, I need it to be sent over to, some other people. Now, when I do a report, there's a little extra learning here. You do see the option to post it into self-service. This would save it into this person's self-service, a folder that they can access in self-service. Otherwise, it'll be delivered as a PDF to Charlene on Monday at 9 a.m. So that's why I'm saying you can stack like multiple reports or data grids in here if you want to, and go ahead and save. Now you'll see here, this does say not launched because I scheduled it for Monday at 9, and that's obviously a few days away. It hasn't run yet, but here you see an example of ones that have run. I have them scheduled, and you can see the times that they're scheduled to run and the last time that they ran. All right, and they all will run successfully. Now, it is possible that there's a problem with the data grid. Maybe you did an SQL one and there's a problem with the SQL. This might say that there was an error. If you click on it and there's an error, it will tell you down here what the error is, but it's not going to be super clean. It's like better to go and run it yourself, but it will tell you the problem if there is one. It will tell you that there's an error. All right, so that's how that works. It doesn't, of course, need to be active to run. So, make sure this is checked off. If it's not, then obviously it won't run. But that's how you can set up a task scheduler to run a report. You can use task schedulers for other things, and I believe we've had training on that. If not, we'll do one in the future. I'll have to look over the schedule, but you can do things like sending reminders and assigning training and things like that, that also can be configured. All right, so that's it on data grid. I saw there was a few questions out there, some things about CFRs. So a couple people asking about CFRs for organizing data grids and stuff like that. So just as a reminder, if you do want to create a CFR related to the data grids, let me just go there. You don't need to be there to do it, but you can come here to the help menu. So clicking the help icon, clicking right here, and then put out your great idea of organizing your data grids. So it's not a list, it's folders or by creator or something like that. So you'll see here, there probably are some already about data grids you can search and then, maybe contribute to those or vote them up. Or you want to create a new one. You just go out here and say, I would like to suggest we do whatever in our data grids. So you're certainly welcome to do that. And of course, we do take these into consideration. We add, I think it's like 20 issues in this latest release, or the one that's coming up, from the CFR boards, from the ones that are highly upvoted. So like this one here, I may not be this one because it's only 9 days ago, but this might be in the next release. Same thing with like this number 7 votes. So we definitely look at these and we take these into consideration for our future releases. All right, so thank you for those questions. Let me just quickly bring up our upcoming schedule. And so you should be able to see this here. So on the 12th, we are going to be covering time off plans. And obviously this could be a very, very big subject because there are many, many different types of time off plans that people have configured over the years. I'm going to cover a few different types and talk about how those work in the system, and then also like how do you make a request and stuff. All right, so we are going to take a break because we're going to the HR Tech Conference, and we hope to see you there. It's in Las Vegas, so just a little, inspiration for maybe going to see that conference. And then we're going to pick up in October. We're going to talk about forms. So I know we talked about them a little bit in here. We're going to talk about them again because we've made some changes since the last time we did training on forms. So we're going to revisit them in October. And then we're going to cover recruiting question sets. So you may be familiar with these or not. In recruiting, you can ask questions of your candidates. So we're going to talk about how that sets up, as well as some of the new features that are coming to question sets. And then it seems kind of strange to talk about it in August, but year end is coming around for our payroll folks. As you may be aware, we do a couple of training for the US and Canada. So these are our first for the US and Canada in November, and then we'll do them again in December to cover US and Canadian year-end processing and what needs to go into those processes. So hope to see you at one or more of these out here. We want to thank you for your time today. As always, you can reach out to us, help@criterionhcm.com if you need any help, or if you're working with a business partner, you can reach directly out to them. So thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a nice day.